What makes a good date movie? Ideally, a good date movie tells a cute story with pretty actors and a few laughs so you can continue to enjoy a romantic evening. The last date movie I saw was Aquaman, which isn't the best option because it's overlong and silly, but I got to hold the girl's hand so it all worked out. What you really don't want for a date movie is Midsommar, and I don't say that to negate its quality since it's a fascinating movie. Rather that it's such a deeply cynical and disturbing experience that you won't even want to make eye contact with your date by the end of it. Fresh off of the success of Hereditary, Ari Aster brings us yet another disturbing horror film that will stick with you long after you finish watching. It's about a troubled young woman named Danny, played by Florence Pugh, who accompanies her schmuck boyfriend Christian, played by Jack Rayner, and his highfalutin friends on a trip to Sweden. The reason for said trip is to stay with a local commune and bear witness to their sacred Midsummer Festival, which happens once every 90 years. As for the rest of the plot, the less said the better, since it gets pretty complicated and bizarre from there. I mean, you know the movie's going to be pretty artsy when it starts off with a mural. Watching this movie is like being stuck in a hazy fever dream, and it's unique within the horror genre in that it's set almost entirely in daylight. While Hereditary was more tightly paced, Aster and cinematographer Paul Pogorzelski really outdid themselves this time with the visuals, featuring a colorful and dazzling aesthetic that contrasts the story's palpable sense of malevolence. It reminds me of another great horror film, The Wicker Man, the original version, not the crappy Nicolas Cage one. As for the acting, it's uniformly good, but the real standout is definitely Florence Pugh, who does stunning work and really sells her character's isolation and vulnerability. She runs the whole gamut of emotions, and between this and Little Women, it's clear that she has more great roles ahead of her. And the rest of the cast is really believable too. Jack Rayner as the unlikable Christian, William Jackson Harper as the haughty Josh, Will Poulter as the comically ignorant Mark, and so on. It's fascinating to watch these imperfect characters grapple with concepts like joy, grief, and even unconventional cooking. Ultimately, Midsommar is emblematic of how the horror genre can take ordinary conflicts and crank them up to the extreme, and if you've seen the movie, you'll know what I'm referring to. So in conclusion, I really enjoyed Midsommar, but keep in mind, it's not for the faint of heart and certainly won't appeal to everybody. Friends of mine have expressed that they felt like the conceit of the movie was overstated, but I personally don't mind. Who needs subtlety when you got all sorts of crazy shit to talk about? When I left the screening of the movie in California, I recall one girl saying as she exited the theater, "Watching that movie made me want to scrape the eyeballs out of my head." Now, if you ask me, a movie that elicits a strong reaction like that is worth watching, even if you need to be in the right mood. It might feel a little queasy after it's done. There is a director's cut of this movie, but if you're a first-time viewer, I'd recommend starting with the original version, and if you like it, go from there. So if you're in the mood for something that will make you react with revulsion and nervous laughter, check out Midsommar, or Midsommar if you want to get fancy.